SMU traveling to Louisville, Kentucky to take on the Cards. It's an ACC showdown going down at noon Eastern. Louisville is a 7-point favorite, and the over-under is set at 56.5. SMU wanted to be in the ACC so badly that they turned down their TV money to be able to do it. This is a program that is hungry as all get out to get back to where they feel like they have a place in college football. If you're like me, you probably weren't alive whenever SMU got the death penalty, but you've probably seen the 30 for 30 or whatever documentaries they've done on it. Absolutely just tore that program apart because they were blatantly cheating. And SMU just never made their way back. And this is their attempt to get back to prominence in college football where they were. They were an absolute powerhouse back in the day. And where this team is located in Texas, it's a recruiting hotbed, donations galore, money to go around. Lots of money donated last week after SMU was able to defeat Florida State there at home handedly, mind you. Very, very big win there for SMU and a big, big season for SMU so far. And the Louisville Cards coming off of the loss to Notre Dame last week, turned the ball over 3 times in the first quarter, ended up getting things straightened out second, third, and fourth quarter for the most part, but too little too late as Notre Dame was able to squeeze out of that one with a touchdown victory at home over the Louisville Cardinals. That was not obviously a conference game, so Louisville still undefeated in the conference and has all their goals in front of them, as does SMU at this point. Um, let's look at some of the numbers from SMU so far this season. It's been kind of hit or miss here offensively in some areas. Passing the ball hasn't exactly been a strength of this team, but been pretty good at running the football. Rhett Lashley made the switch at quarterback over to Jennings from Preston Stone earlier this season. A lot of people watched that SMU Nevada game earlier this season. I know I did. There wasn't really anything else on TV, so you went and watched it. And if you were like me, you watched that first game of the season, and you said, "Well, damn, if they had a quarterback, they might actually be pretty decent." Well, lo and behold, Jennings is waiting there in the wings, and he's kind of just taking the ball and ran with it, literally. A really good dual threat quarterback. He's young, not the most experienced guy in the world. He's not going to be at the Heisman ceremony, and may not even be a guy that you've really heard about. But he's brought a bright light to this offense, and these numbers are kind of turning around week by week. I feel like right now. But this has been a very explosive team, Mason. 21st in the country with plays of 10 plus yards. They got 79 of those bad boys. And then 21st in the country as far as plays of 20 plus yards at 28. It's been a pretty decent offense. Pretty good on third down. It's just statistically, they're not putting up the most yards, but they're pretty doggone efficient. Pass yards per attempt, 7.9. That's 52nd. That's putting you up there almost top third in the country. So that's pretty decent. Defensively, you can look at some of the numbers there. They're almost the inverse exactly of what they are offensively, right? Um, they're good at creating turnovers, but they give up a pretty good amount of yards, passing yards, particularly 82nd in the country, 224.4 yards given up per game through the air. Um, it's just look when we posted our early thoughts video earlier this week, multiple people got on there and commented over on this football game, and it has a little bit to do with this defense and their ability or inability to be able to slow down the passing game, but they do create some havoc. 27 tackles for loss this season, not a ton of sacks, but look at that. Turnovers forced. First in the country. 14 total turnovers and have gotten 9 interceptions so far this season. So little bit of a bend don't break style defense here, and pretty good at turning the football over. What are your thoughts on SMU so far this year? Impressive win last week. It's been kind of a journey for them as the seasons went on, but they're in pretty good shape in the ACC at this point. Would need to get the win here.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the defense has been better than we expected coming into the season. They're 22nd overall on defense, which is a little bit of a surprise, when you look at them, especially after week one, and we just kind of felt like SMU was bound to have kind of a bad season. I mean, they struggled against Nevada, which was a team that we just expected them to blow out. Then they lose to BYU by 3 points. It was a heartbreaking loss. Little did we know BYU's like pretty good this year. So that's a decent loss in hindsight. But at the time, we were thinking, man, what the heck's going on with SMU? But they get the big win against Florida State, which I think says more about Florida State than it does SMU. But it was a pretty decided win, as they were 6 point favorites and won 42-16. So that was a big win, and I think that this offense has really found something with Jennings. I going into the season, it seemed like Preston Stone was, a veteran, experienced quarterback, wasn't going to make a lot of mistakes. And then, once a couple of games were played, we're all kind of just thinking, man, this guy's pretty bad actually. And then Jennings comes in, kind of saves the day. Looks like he's a much better fit for this offense, and adds some dynamic abilities in the passing and in the running game as well. So really like what I've seen out of Jennings so far. But couple that with a defense that's playing really well, a defensive line that's playing phenomenal. They've got 10 quarterback hurries on the year already. It looks like a pretty good team in the ACC this year, which is what we said going into it. We thought that the SMU would be kind of a dark horse in the ACC this year. I don't necessarily know that they're equipped to win it, but it does seem like they're an upset team for me. For the rest of the season, this is going to be a really tough matchup with Louisville. We'll get to Louisville here in a minute, but I do like what I've seen from SMU so far in their first year in the ACC.
Yeah, just to kind of mention some of the playmakers here on this offense. RJ Maryland, the tight end, is actually your leading receiver this season, 16 receptions, 221 yards, 3 touchdowns. Bailey there at wide receiver, your leading wide receiver as far as receiving. 11 catches, 170 yards. Look, I mean, this wide receiver room, if you look at it, the pass catchers, whatever you want to call them, you can kind of point at this and say maybe this has a little bit to do with the lack of production as far as pass yards per game and things like that offensively. Um, there's not really a big time playmaker as far as a pass catcher on this team. That would be, I think, the biggest bugaboo of this offense. While they've been good at running the football, um, this offense has really spread the ball around trying to figure out who's the playmaker here. There's at least 12 guys here with catches. Your third leading receiver for the season is your running back, Brashard Smith, who's had a really nice year, 70 carries, 509 yards. That's good for 7.3 yards a pop, with 7 touchdowns for him. So um, just a few of the playmakers there, and kind of areas of concern for the offense. Let's jump over to Louisville, and we'll look at some of these same stats. And we just broke down Louisville last week, and um, look, I really like this team, and they're one of those college football teams. We talked about how teams are different from week to week. They haven't played their best football yet. They have not played their best football yet. Tyler Shook comes in through the transfer portal in the offseason. You know, it's gone as good as you could expect for him so far, minus that first quarter against Notre Dame. Everything has went great, minus that first quarter. It was just an embarrassment of a quarter of football there, and then everything was straightened up for the most part. Didn't light the world on fire necessarily, but you get Colin Lacey back as far as in that wide receiver room. I really, what's that other guy's name? Uh, it's not Brown, Brooks, the guy from Alabama. He comes in through the transfer portal, Ja'Cory Brooks. He's been really, really good. So you've got two really good go-to wide receivers there. You've got 5 damn running backs, and mind you, 3 of them are freshmen. I get that, but Isaac Brown, Duke Watson, Keywan Brown, these are guys that I really like. Maurice Turner has been a little banged up, but he's more of the the veteran guy, and then you got Donald Chaney that came over from Miami, who's a really, really tough runner. So tons of running backs to turn around and hand the ball off to. A couple of really good wide receivers. One of them you just got back last week, so he's really just getting acclimated. I think Louisville is going to be able to have some success through the air in this football game, so long as they don't turn the football over. SMU's been so good at being there to receive some of those, mental mistakes as far as interceptions go, and they've been really, really good at it, as we referenced earlier. 9 of those bad boys so far this year. Um, 54th rush yards per game, 23rd pass yards per game at 293 offensively. Some pretty decent numbers there. 41.5 points per game. 44th in the country in third down percentage. Here's some of the numbers that were more concerning to me. 71st as far as red zone touchdown rate. So 62.5% of the time when they get in the red zone, they score a touchdown. That's not great. And I think that's a little bit to do with, the yardage not matching up with some of the point totals in these football games. Louisville only scored 31 points against Georgia Tech. Not a good defense there, and the defense helped them out. Defense and special teams helped this team out a lot in that game. So really struggled to put points on the board while getting plenty of yards kind of between the 20s. This team has kind of been a little hesitant when they've gotten the red zone this season. That's going to need, you're going to need to shore that up in this game, and I think you're going to have a really good opportunity, as it's not necessarily a lockdown defense for SMU in this one. Defensively, this is all Louisville fans in the preseason and going into 2024 felt like the defense was should be a step ahead of the offense. And I told all of them in the comment section when they commented that in Braum I trust, he'll figure out the offense. You want your strength to be on your defense for a Jeff Braum head coach team. And that's mostly been the case. I mean, it's been a pretty doggone good defense. Look at the third down conversion percentage allowed this season, 23.08. That is outstanding number there. Rush yards per carry allowed, 2.83. Really, really good. You're with some of the best teams in the country there as far as those numbers. 10 sacks so far this year defensively, 42nd in the country. 31 tackles for loss, that's 32nd in the country. And 6 total turnovers forced, that's 62nd in the country. Just okay there, middle of America as far as statistically. But there's not just like one area that you can point to from this defense and say, wow, they're really, really, really bad at that. Pretty decent at everything. And I would say more of an expertise as far as stopping the run. Did a really good job last week. We all know what Notre Dame can do running the football, right? We've seen Notre Dame run it up on some people running the football this year with Riley Leonard and Jeremiah Love. This Louisville defense was able to hold them under 125 yards rushing in that football game. Very, very impressive feat there, in my opinion. What do you think about this matchup, or what do you think about Louisville in this matchup, I should say?
Yeah, well, I really really like what they're doing, really on both sides of the football so far this year. I think Tyler Shook, look, he's been healthy. I think that's kind of the main takeaway. We know what Tyler Shook is when he's healthy, and so far he's been able to stay on the field. That's kind of his biggest strength right now is his health. With him, playing as well as he does, couple that with the running back success that they've had so far on the ground, I think that Louisville can really can really win the ACC, and it starts this week against SMU. It is a pretty close matchup in my opinion, but overall, and you know what's interesting, Mark, is these teams have never played each other. Like, that's a little bit odd, given that both teams were in the AAC at one point. I don't think that they were ever in the AAC together, but
Yeah.
it's just a little bit of an interesting stat.
Hmm.
And when you look at SMU defensively, they have struggled against the pass. I'm wondering, with Lacey coming back, if he's not able to get involved in this game plan a little bit more, and really, with Tyler Shook as well, with Lacey and Brooks, maybe they get a little bit more involved there. I do think that they will struggle to run the football against SMU. I mentioned the defensive line and what they've been able to do so far this year. I think that if you're going to win this football game, it's going to be with Tyler Shook and his arm, with some of the pass catching weapons that they have. Defensively, really like what I've seen out of Louisville so far. They pretty much, when you compare Louisville's defense to SMU's offense, they pretty much win every statistical category. But we also saw Preston Stone for a couple of games this year, so those stats are a little bit skewed when you look at that. I think Jennings adds a different element, so this is going to be kind of a different sort of ball game than what Louisville has seen so far, even against Notre Dame. I think that Jennings is a slightly better passer than Riley Leonard at this point, and and I'm curious to see what Louisville does on defense against Jennings in this game. But ultimately, I do like Louisville in this game and on the offensive side of the football against SMU. As good as SMU's been, that's kind of the matchup to watch, right? If Louisville has success against SMU's defense, I think it's a long day for SMU. But a lot of that's going to come from their offensive line not giving up the sacks. They gave up 3 sacks last week against Notre Dame. SMU's defensive front is pretty similar to Notre Dame's and is in their pass rush and in their effectiveness and ability to disrupt the passer. How does that offensive line hold up? Can they limit the turnovers? I think if those two things are a check mark for Louisville, I think that they win this game pretty handedly. But those are big asks because those are typically what decide football games. When you look at sacks and havoc rate and turnovers, that can ruin your opportunity to win the football game. So, but my pick in this game, looking at what's gone on. Look, SMU has had they're +7 in turnovers in the last 2 games. I don't expect them to continue that trend. SMU is also 0-6 going back to 2021. They're 0-6 against the spread as a road dog. Louisville in that same span is 13-3 against the spread as a home favorite since 2021. I like Jennings. I like the switch to quarterback, but in this game, I'm going to trust Braum to get the home win. I really like this at 6.5 points. I see on FanDuel you can get it at 6.5 points. I think it's going to be about a touchdown game. But if come Thursday for our bet and show, if this comes down to 6.5, I really like Louisville to cover that. 7 or higher, I'm kind of staying away from it. But give me Louisville as far as my game pick to win this football game. And like I said, anything 7 or higher. Anything lower than 7, I'm betting Louisville to cover the spread as well.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, I don't love it at 7. And to be honest with you, with the over under, that would probably be what I would attack in this football game as far as betting purposes go. And I'd bet the over. I think there's going to be some points scored in this football game. We saw Georgia Tech be able to move the ball really well against Louisville. I think that we're going to see some points scored in this one. Now, as far as the spread goes, yeah, I'm with you. 7 is kind of a weird number to me. As far as me trying to put money on that, I don't know. That's a round number that Vegas would love for you to bet, and so I'm with you, Mason. I'm wanting this thing to come to 6.5. So I guess technically I'm taking SMU +7 here. And if that number moves, we'll definitely be talking about it on the Thursday betting show, Thursday night between the lines at 7:30 here on the First and Long College Football Show. We hope that you will join us for that. Good luck to everybody this weekend. Thank you for watching.